Alright guys, in this video I'm going to talk about Wrenn and Seven, which has pretty much become my favorite Planeswalker to use. I think that she's one of the best Planeswalkers in Standard right now, and my favorite mono green. I mean, Nissa Worldwaker is probably a little bit more powerful and easier to set up, but once you have the right thing going with Wrenn and Seven, she's just such a fun Planeswalker to use. And one of the decks I wanted to showcase here, well, I'm going to showcase different versions of this deck. And it's basically a mono green semi-looping deck that relies on the new lands from the latest set, the Innistrad set. So let's get into the deck. So, our creatures here are Scute Swarm and Marasa Root Gazer and Gretchen Titchwillow. The creatures help the engine of the deck go on a little bit, but it's really about taking advantage of her abilities and how they synergize with these cards. So this is the Peasant version of this deck. I do have a Pauper version as well, but I'll showcase this one because this is the main core of the deck and what I kind of built this deck around. So let's get into these cards. So when you match 5 or more green gems, reinforce this creature 2 times. In landfall green, create X insect tokens. X is the number of this creature's reinforcement. So once you have at least one of these creatures down, then this thing grows really quickly in this deck. Marasa Root Grazer. So the reason this card is in this deck is because when you landfall green, the first land support in your hand gains 6 mana. And landfall white, fetch the first land support from your library. And at the end of your turn, shuffle the board. That doesn't matter that much, but those two, especially landfall green, is really important for this deck. And Gretchen Titchwillow, this card is actually relatively resilient. Like, it doesn't die that quickly, so it'll stay on the board even though it has Defender most of the time. But the abilities at the beginning of your turn, if the first card in your hand is a land card, it gains full mana. Otherwise, draw a card. So that can come in handy a lot of times. And then Binding of the Old Gods and Mortality Spear. Mortality Spear, helps to get rid of most of your serious threats, and Binding of the Old Gods does its thing as well. But the most important part of the card for this deck is actually the second chapter in the saga, which is fetch the first land support from your library and move that card into play under your control. Now, since we only have these lands, and I'll get into why I chose these lands specifically, Rockfall Vale being the best of the lands for Wrenn and Seven, because whenever you hit that second chapter, it's going to pull one of these up, or the ability on these cards is going to trigger. So all these lands have this really key thing on it. When this support enters the board, if there are 10 or more red and green gems on the board, all cards in your hand gain 5 mana. So having so many of these in your deck means that you're filling up your hand a lot. And so I chose these because they all have either green as one of the gems that it converts to, or this one has red. And so you can't have more than 2 or more than one Rockfall Vale, so we have to just go with the ones that will benefit us the most. Because of this will continuously feed mana into our cards, and we'll get into her abilities and why this helps a lot too when we get into gameplay. And then Eureka Moment, draw 2 cards, convert 4 gems to your Planeswalker's colors. This does double duty because it's going to draw us cards, and it's going to which means it'll probably get us more lands, and then converting gems will hopefully fuel those lands. So this card is really effective in this deck. And then Animus Awakening it's one of those cards that I'm going back and forth if I want to just replace this one with Field Trip or leave it in as Animist Awakening, because sometimes that one turn countdown gem fizzles before you even get to it, or it gets broken, and then you have to rely on there being already a lot of green gems on the board for it to convert on play. So if you don't have Animist Awakening, go with Field Trip. So actually, you know what? Let's just go ahead and put Field Trip in our deck, because Field Trip also lets you learn, which in turn basically gives you 2 extra cards. And actually, let's just say Field Trip is better because we have a lot of kind of little weenie cards, and so that fractal summoning that you get from learn can actually help boost your damage you deal. So okay, let's get into gameplay and see how it goes for us. Okay, so first thing we want to do is get to her loyalty ability, and I have to say her first loyalty ability is the best in the game. It does so much for us. So I'll talk about it more when I'm actually able to use it. Okay, Haunted Ridge and Binding of the Old Gods. Okay, we got an extra card. I don't know what. Okay. Let's see. Let's just get to a loyalty ability. Okay, Haunted Ridge and Rockfall Vale. I'll save casting Binding of the Old Gods in case there's a creature I need to get rid of. Okay, so now we got our first ability. So 1 with Nature. Pick up to 4 of the first 4 cards from your library. Fetch those cards and destroy the top 4 cards of your library. Land cards in your hand gain half their mana. So that's what we want to deal with here. That part, the land cards. So what we want to do is grab a few of our land cards. So, okay. I actually like to put as many cards into my hand as possible, because we're not really grabbing them out of the graveyard with this deck in particular. So Field Trip should help to grab Rockfall Vale. There was a Cascade, so it grabbed an extra land, and then the Rockfall Vale will hopefully put a lot of mana into the rest of our cards in our hand. So now we got gems converting, which will in turn hopefully give us more loyalty when they match. So overgrown farmland. All right. So I like to save Binding of the Gods for non-token opposing creatures if I can, because Mortality Spear won't target token creatures, unfortunately. It's its only downside. So you see how it Binding of the Gods did that for me. Oh wait, no it didn't. Never mind. Okay, so Skeet Swarm, let's get that on the board. Fractal Summoning. Mortality Spear is untargeted, so one of the nice things is it will destroy creatures without you even realizing it half the time. That sucks. Don't like it when it Gets rid of cards that already filled up. So fractal summoning. So okay, no lands to grab this time. So we'll just keep pumping up our creatures. Got a 5 match there. Oh shoot, I got a Hixus. I got Hixusted. Nothing I really need there, but Mortality Spear to the rescue. So I can replace Gretchen with insects once they get out. And this deck in particular didn't really show off this match in particular didn't show off the insects, but once those get going, they can grow pretty quickly. And so that was that version of the deck, but I'll show you the Pauper version in just a moment here. Oh, training grounds is over, damn it. I chose the wrong time to do this one. Okay, well, no matter. I can still build it in my... Okay, well, there's a preview of my other deck. Legacy I've been messing with. Okay, so it's basically a lot of the same cards. We just take Skewed Swarm out. No rares allowed in this deck. So let's get our Murasa back. The core of this deck doesn't change too much, actually. Zimone in there. I actually might replace Gretchen with Zimone. It seems to actually be a little bit more useful in this deck. And, okay, let's get Root Grazer back. And the main thing that's going to be doing damage for us is going to be this one, Leyline Invocation. Create a fractal token, then increase its level by X. X is the number of green gems. So this can grow pretty easily. So let's see. You know what? Let's get rid of Herald and put in Field Trip instead. Let's see how that goes. I use Herald because it stacks and can grow pretty quickly, especially in a deck where you're just constantly feeding mana to your hand. But I think Field Trip might actually help things move along a lot more. So we got a Binding and a Mortality Spear. So that means we'll probably be able to get rid of one of these. Okay, yep. Alright, and we already have our first ability we can take advantage of. Let's grab all these. And we got Farmland, and hopefully it will speed up our mana gains here. Nothing great, but okay. Alright, well, at least it left us a red match. Oh, there's a green match at the bottom too. Okay, this is cool. Yeah. Eureka moment, helping to fill up our deck. Or our hand. I keep calling it deck. I mean hand. Okay, we got a Binding ready for him. Dragon goes bye-bye. Cool, lane line of Invocation. Give me a nice fat fractal token. See that? It grabbed a land card from my library, and so that helped to fill up the cards in my hand. I should have used my loyalty ability, but that's okay. Can use it on the next turn. So yeah, that ley line just keeps pumping it up. I'm going to save one of these. Actually, let's see. Bam. That is a Pauper deck. That will do that to a deck with a bunch of dragons in it. So, you can see the power of this deck. And let's supercharge it a bit and throw in a couple of Mythic cards that work well for this. So instead of Zimone, let's throw in, and then Leyline. We won't need Leyline, but even though it's a good card, let us throw back in that Scoot Swarm. Actually, yeah, let's Scoot Swarm, Ancient Green Warden, and last but not least, this is a like standard deck. So Verdant Mastery, and if you're not too familiar with Verdant Mastery, what it does is you fetch the first 3 different land supports from your library, then convert X gems to green. X is equal to the highest base mana cost of a land card in your hand. If this card was enhanced 2 or less times, copy up to 2 of those cards to your opponent's hand, and those copies gain full mana. So the drawback to this card, and why I don't use it that often other than in this deck, is that you're basically helping your opponent fill up their hand because they're getting copies of the same cards that you're using. But you're basically converting 12 gems to green when you use Verdant Mastery. And what that will help is with all of Scoot Swarm's abilities. So let's go ahead and use that. Oh, also, if you're not familiar with Ancient Green Warden, at the beginning of combat on your turn, return the first land support from your graveyard to the board under your control, and when a land support enters the board under your control, convert 6 gems to your Planeswalker's colors. This effect can trigger up to 3 times per turn. So, both of those abilities are relevant for this deck, but especially the bottom one, because land supports are going to be entering the board all over the place. So you're going to get so much green gem conversion out of this, which in turn will help the Scoot Swarm go nuts. So let's see how much I will grow my Scoots this time. Okay, Eureka moment. Get me some cards. Let's see what happens here. Cool. Well, this will fill up our hand, I think. Just about. Oh, yeah, there we go. Or just off by a bit. Okay, there's Verdant Mastery. The way you want to use Verdant Mastery is usually leaving it at the bottom of your hand, because you want to have as much advantage for casting it as possible. And so you need those extra cards down at the bottom of your, or slots for cards in your hand when you cast it. And hopefully you give let's see, so it's 3 different, so you want at least 3 spots for Verdant Mastery to fill up your hand. And if you can do it without enhance your hand, and if you want to do it while you enhance your card, that's even better, so you don't give your opponent the advantage. So I could just try and get the non-land cards out of my graveyard, but I don't think I've used enough. So okay, this is great. Actually don't need those Haunted Ridges because they're going to go into my graveyard, and Green Warden will fetch them out for me at the end of this turn. So first thing I want to do is get the Scute Swarm on the board. Oh, okay, so next turn we'll start to really blast off here. Okay, dang. There's a lot happening there. I don't like that. Okay, well, at least the force tokens died on impact. Okay, we got a Mortality Spear and Binding. Okay, let's see if we can grab some. Okay, I don't hate this. This should leave 3 slots open for me. Let's see what we got here. Not great. What are some good matches here? Should I go with that white or down here? Dang, I was hoping for a better. Shoot. Okay, well, that's... Things are rolling. Okay, this is better than I thought. Good. Got rid of Tana's here. Oh, nice. That worked out better than I thought. Great. Fractal Summoning. Got some Eureka moment going. There we go. We're looping now. We're pumping up now. That's what I wanted to see. So every green landfall from this point on is going to do that for me. Okay. Well, she's doing her thing, which I'm not crazy about, but as long as it's just... I don't like that I'm going to lose my Green Warden, but so be it. I could just get back my Green Warden. Using her 3rd ability. We got that. 5 swap. So this can happen with the Pauper, or not Pauper, the Peasant build as well. So don't think that you need Mythics to get this crazy swarm, but it sure does help to have that Green Warden and the Verdant Mastery. So yeah, that was standard Wrenn and Seven, and that you can see a fun way of using those. But just for fun, let's pull out my legacy deck that has Rashmi in it. I think this is the right one. Okay, yeah. I will warn you, loops will ensue. By the way, did I mention a Pauper withstood legacy training grounds? I mean, it is Greg, so I won't always be that fortunate, but still. Okay, quick moment. Just not getting good matches here. Okay, well, that's blowing the doors open on this. I'll save that Rishkar for if I need it in the next turn. Well, there's another one anyway. So yeah, what's crazy is that every time I cast one of those lands, and it almost never not triggers. That's another crazy thing about these lands. It's almost always an extra free 5 mana to all your cards. So that means if there's a Rishkar in my hand already, that's always going to cast it just for casting one of those lands. I don't even have to cast the land. You can summon it. So I'll stop the loop, but it just gets out of control that way. I mean, so they're already dead. I didn't even need to use my abilities at all this time. So every landfall will trigger the amount of reinforcement. So every green landfall gives me 15 more ants, 15 times 3. Well, yeah, and then that keeps reinforcing on every landfall in green as well. So that obviously stacks up really high. Okay, well, you guys get it, right? Loop is already stopped and it's still letting me keep going. I don't think it'll let me cast any more of my cards. Oh, it does? Okay. Alright, well, sorry guys, gotta wait for the next loop. The next loop timer to go off. Don't blame you if you want to skip to the end of this battle. Okay. Jeez, another extra swap. Okay, let's just... I'll spare you. Alright. Well, I hope that gives you guys ideas on how to use Wrenn and Seven. And that's only one way of using her. She's so versatile. You can do so much with her. You can build around the graveyard, and I have a few decks for that. But this has been my favorite new way of using her, is basically treating those new lands like mana gaining spells. So yeah, that was just a really fun discovery, and it was really fun to mess around with that. I spent way too long yesterday tinkering with that deck. So yeah, if this inspires you, let me know. And if you guys want to add some new things to it that might improve it. I mean, I don't have every card, but I have plenty, so I hope that I can take advantage of your experiments as well. All right, see you in the next one.